And we're live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us again. I got to do my little spiel at the beginning, as always. If you want to join the chat at bravenewnormal.substack.com. I cannot pay attention to like 6 different chats. Just go to bravenewnormal.substack.com. You can join the conversation there. Live streams are free. I put up a free preview of the recordings every week. But if you want to watch the full recordings of the live streams, you have to either A, subscribe to bravenewnormal.substack.com. It's $5 a month or $50 for the year. B, subscribe on X at JasonJamesBNN. You get all the same stuff that you get on Substack on X. Paid subscribers get full access to recordings of the live streams. You get early access to podcast episodes and exclusive paid-only essays that I write. Also, if you want access to the recordings of the live streams, early access to podcast episodes, you can become a member on YouTube. It's $5 a month. But here's the thing. If you become a member on Substack or a paid subscriber on Substack, you get everything, including the essays. If you're a member on YouTube, you don't get the essays because I can't post written stuff on YouTube. It's video only. So I just want to say this really quick. Peyman, sorry, brother. I know I'm killing you. I got to do a pre-recorded intro or something. Please sign up on Substack. If you're going to become a paid subscriber anywhere, become a paid subscriber on Substack. The reason I say that is because, once again, I'm being suppressed now on Instagram Reels, which I don't really give a fuck about, but it's annoying to constantly be suppressed on different platforms at different times. If you sign up as a subscriber, free or paid on Substack, all of the podcast episodes, all of the live streams, all of my essays, they go straight to your inbox. It has a newsletter function. So you're not dependent on the algorithms for it to feed you whatever it is that I'm putting out there. If you're interested in the podcast, if you're interested in my writing or these live streams, sign up at bravenewnormal.substack.com. You can sign up for free or as a paid subscriber. But what Substack offers is the newsletter feature, which is so important because it doesn't make us slaves to the algorithms. You get everything direct to your inbox. I don't do spam. I do not send calls to action or any of that stupid shit. Anything that you receive in your inbox will either be a live stream, a podcast episode, or an essay, something that you may find valuable. So if you do want to sign up as a paid subscriber or as a paid member anywhere, sign up on Substack, bravenewnormal.substack.com. But if you prefer X or YouTube as your chosen platforms, you can sign up as a member on YouTube or as a subscriber on X and receive all the same stuff. Peyman Askari, you beautiful son of a bitch. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. But the Carney government is slowly whittling me down. I'm getting tired of this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about it. What's going on, Peyman? What's on your mind?
Well, they released the budget. And I got the numbers here, but I'll try to go off memory. It's 500 billion. It's not that complicated. They're bringing in 500 billion. They're spending about 580 billion. There's like a 75 billion difference. So they have to get a $75 billion loan, and that goes to our $2.2 trillion debt. Mm-hmm. And it's almost par for the course because we're not responsible anymore. We're always spending more than we're taking in. But now the conservatives, they can't Pierre Poilievre's in a tough spot because if he opposes the bill and they call an election, he might lose. And he's saying how he's okay with a $40 billion deficit, but not 80. These numbers have no meaning. I mean, $5 to you is a lot of money. $100 if you lose it, it's a lot of money. $80 billion, I can't even comprehend what that amount of money is. And we don't know where it's going. A lot of this money is going to transfers back to the provinces. A lot of the debt is not just in federal, it's provincial, it's municipal, it's household, it's commercial, like companies. Mm. And we're in this debt slavery system, which I know we were going to get to at the end, but I don't know how we get out of this. People tell me, Peyman, you got to stop complaining and you got to come up with solutions. I don't see a solution out of this.
No, and like I was saying, I put out an episode with Bruce Party this week, and I think it was that episode where I talked about it. But we're at this point where like when you're saying billion, it doesn't mean anything to anybody anymore. When you say 40 billion, 500 billion, 50 billion, 1 trillion, these are just words. Like they don't have meaning. We don't have context for these numbers anymore because they're so, they're so big. It's like we can't even wrap our mind around it. So the thing that really, so to be honest, I haven't paid a ton of attention. And Peyman, I'm going to need you to lead the dance on this today. But I have read a little bit about this new liberal budget. And basically, so what people have to understand is that when socialists say the word investment, they don't mean it in the way that you and I would think it means. Right? Like when we think investment, we think private investors or companies, organizations investing into projects. When socialists say investment, what they mean is our money going into their projects. So when they're talking about investment, they're talking about spending. They're spending tax dollars on these whatever projects they have lined up. And it seems like Mark Carney and the Liberal Party have a pretty ambitious lineup of projects that they want to get moving. Peyman, did you take that away from this? Did you see the same thing?
No, I guess I didn't look into the level of detail. The way I look at it is they've taken the nation hostage. So once upon a time, everybody managed their own books, and then the government said, "Give it to us; we can manage it better." And now the people are saying, "Well, if we take away that power from government, who's going to give us health care? Who's going to educate our kids? Who's going to pave the roads? What am I going to do when I'm old and retired and I have no pension?" Because the people they can't comprehend a universe where the government isn't doing this. The government can run roughshod. And what they're doing is they're relying on the fact that the people don't understand that when you have a $500 billion income, taxes coming in, $580 billion expenses, the people are not capable of understanding that shortfall of 75 billion, whatever, they have to go to the bank to get that, which means they have to pay interest on that, which means the debt just keeps growing and growing. And on top of that, you mentioned socialism and the fact that when socialists say investment, they mean something else. There's a whole corruption aspect of it too. The bureaucracy is corrupt. Brookfield coming in and snatching up the houses at our taxpayer expense, that's also corruption.
So when you say Brookfield coming in and snatching up the houses, what are you referring to, Peyman?
Again, I don't know the mechanics, but like I hear from people out east, they're saying that like Brookfield, which has all this money, they can come in and they can buy up the assets. So now the housing market's gone down a little bit and they can come in and they can buy it for a little cheaper. But this is just a principle. If I have $1 billion, or especially if I have a relationship with the bank and the bank can print money and it can give me a $750 billion loan, I can go in and I can start buying up the land. But you, Jason James, if you have $150,000 or $700,000, you have to go to the bank and you got to get a mortgage. Like your ability to leverage that to buy a house is a lot lower. So I'm going based on reports that Brookfield, Blackstone, BlackRock, they're all coming in and they're snatching up massive amounts of real estate in Canada.
Yeah, and that's really concerning. And I think that's one of the big issues that is flying over people's heads that they aren't really paying much attention to. I mean, the hard thing is that there's so much happening everywhere all the time. Like, you said last live stream, right? I went into, a brief thing about Charlie Kirk, and you're like, I know nothing about this because there's just too much to pay attention to. And I don't know if that's a tactic or if that's just what's happening or if it's a product of the internet and having, instant access to all the information that has been made publicly available. I don't know what it is, or if it's a combination of all those things, but it just feels like incredibly overwhelming. Like the fact that we're going to post another $80 billion deficit this year should have caught the attention of a lot of Canadians because we're just, we're sinking. And Peyman, do you know if Canada posted a surplus in any budget year in recent memory?
Yes. I always have to say this. I'm not an expert, but under Chrétien, I believe they had a surplus, but that's also misleading because what you can do is you can just offload that to the provinces, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's mostly what Chrétien did. So no, we haven't really had a surplus since then.
And so the way that this works, I want to break this down like to just like basic terms. So if we're posting an $80 billion deficit, where does that $80 billion come from? Are we printing $80 billion to make up for the loss?
No, let me. Okay, it's going to take me a couple minutes to explain this then.
Explain it. Break it down, man. Go for it.
1974, before that, we had a bank that could give loans. You still had to pay interest on the loans, but because you own that bank, you're paying interest to yourself, to the taxpayer. So essentially, when you take out a loan from the Bank of Canada before 1974, there's no interest on that. After 1974, Pierre Trudeau, he made the argument that no, that's not good. To be responsible, we should take loans from commercial banks because then there's a penalty and it incentivizes us not to take out too many loans. I guess in theory that works. In practice, it didn't work because you're an addict. You don't really give a shit if you're spending money or not. So we started racking up interest payments. But I think your original question was, where do you get this loan? So if you have $500 billion coming in, and let's simplify it, 580 going out, you need $80 billion. You go to the bank, the commercial banks, and you ask for an $80 billion loan. And I'm going to simplify it. They say, we're going to want that money back in 10 years, 80 billion principal, and you're going to pay over the years another $20 billion in interest. So it's not, I'm just making this up. That's a loan. Next year, if it's again, you have 500 billion coming in, 580 going out, you're going to go get another $80 billion loan. So now that loan gets added to your debt, and it gets really convoluted because it's not just that you've added $160 billion to your debt, it's also the interest, but then you're paying off some of your loans. Sometimes some loans close down, but putting aside all that garbage, since 1974, when we switched off that bank, more or less 80% of our debt is because of accrued interest. Like we couldn't pay back a previous loan, so we took out another loan. So it's compound interest. This isn't like we have a $2 trillion debt that we took $2 trillion and put it in a dam or we put it in a hospital. We are spending like drunken sailors.
And so who owns those commercial banks?
I mean, let's assume that these banks are like Wells Fargo or Chase Manhattan. I don't actually know which banks they're getting them from. These are private banks and there's private individuals, and nobody really knows who owns these banks. Like the Federal Reserve in the U.S., for example, it's privately owned. I don't know who the owners are. The Bank for International Settlements, it's the only sovereign bank in the world that, it's a country basically. Nobody knows who owns that either. So I can't answer that.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to figure that one out, right? Because like that's the reason I knew all this stuff, but the reason I'm asking you is because I want people watching this to get a clue. Like, we don't know who we owe money to. We don't know who owns our asses. And if we don't know who owns us, then we don't know who's pulling the strings on our governments. We don't know who's well, I mean, we don't know who's holding the whip. And that's the scary part. The scary part is that we don't even know who we owe. We don't know what we're working toward. Not only that, but that 500 billion payment, that 500 billion that our federal government is projecting us to generate, that's a projection. That's not a guarantee. And that's a projection according to what?
That's a question?
Yeah, that's a question. Like, what is their projection based on?
They have breakdowns of what they're going to spend the money on. Sorry, the money coming in or the money going out?
The money coming in.
Oh, it's mostly from taxes. Some of it comes from like crown corporations, some investments they made, but it's almost exclusively personal. It's like 80% personal income tax and then 20% corporate or something like that.
So basically, it's 500 billion projected to earn through
Yes.
taxation.
Yes.
So that's not even say, for example, like that's not revenue generated from any industry or any, of our, say, for example, oil and gas, timber, anything like that. That's just pure tax revenue.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's pure tax revenue in the sense that they're robbing us. But if you were going to talk to a socialist, they'd say no. It's an indirect revenue generation because the people are mining the natural resources or something. But I agree with you that it's not Crown Corporation. They're not producing anything.
Right. And so like that's what I'm saying. Like it's like the more I think about this, the more it just seems imaginary. Like it's just pretend, you know. Oh, we're going to bring in $500 billion because we're projecting that the Canadian population is going to generate that much in tax revenue. But, like what are we actually generating? What are we creating? What are we building? Are we making anything of value to anybody in the world else in the world? Or, you know what I mean? Like that, this is what I'm saying. Like the whole thing is just, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around it because it's like, well, are we creating any tangible assets? Are we creating anything real? Or is this just money coming off of the backs of the middle class and blue collar laborers that's being siphoned away into, the government black hole? And then they take that money. Like the thing that people have to understand is, again, when they're talking about investment, it's a way of dressing up the reality. And the reality is that they are taking your money, they are taking money from you and then deciding to put it into other things. And we as the voters are expected to just trust that our money that we bust our asses for won't be mismanaged by this government. But if you've followed the Liberals at all for the last 10 years, it's almost a given that at least a quarter of that $500 billion is going to evaporate. It's going to be embezzled somehow, some way. It's going to just disappear. And then the rest of it, we're going to get halfway through, like what always happens with Canada, we're going to get halfway through these really big projects and then run out of money. And then if we want to complete those projects, the appeal to the voters is going to be, well, we're going to have to raise taxes. Like, do you guys see the game? We're all just running in a hamster wheel, generating dollars for these fucking idiots while they're robbing us. And they have no idea what they're doing. And maybe they do. Maybe they have a very clear idea of what they're doing, but it has nothing to do with us and the betterment of our society. And that's the frustrating part about all this, right?
So you're actually pointing out two problems, and I'm going to add two more to it as well. So the first one you're correctly identifying is the waste, the bureaucracy, the regulations. So as people are working, the government comes in and takes a bite out of their apple. This is the whole, for every 3 people in private sector, they have to subsidize the salary of a public sector employee. The other problem, which I think you also indirectly kind of pointed out, is the banks. Now we're talking about the money, the means of transacting. They take a vig off of that. For every dollar that you print, you have to give them interest. To me, that's an even more serious problem because it's the foundation of everything else. So in addition to these bastards taking a bite out of the apple, as I was saying, underneath that, you got the people that control everything that you transact in. I'm talking about the money printing. The two other problems I'll add is, one, I think they've made a deal with the people where the people said, I can't afford to go to Mexico every 6 months for a trip and pay my healthcare. And the government's like, I'll tell you what, you let me deal with healthcare. As long as you don't complain when I print your money supply into oblivion, I'll let you in fake good conscience go to Mexico. I think that's the wager that they made. Out of sight,
Mhm.
out of mind. The other thing is, as you mentioned, like some project goes south, they come in, they're like, oh, we have to tax you again. Election time, they go to people, and everything that you and I are talking about right now, logic goes out the window. People lose their minds. They get behind their team. They pick the team colors, and whatever they say, we have to get money for green industry or our children will all die. We have to get money for truth and reconciliation if we plan to move forward. We have to get our oil and gas sector, up and running, or which I actually agree with, or we're all going to die. But they get people emotional, and logic goes out the window. Those are my 4 points.
And they're beautiful points. I mean, yeah, I look, we've all but destroyed our resource sector, our oil and gas, which is like, for Canada, it's everything. I know that, Justin Trudeau before him and now Mark Carney, they always talk about diversifying in Canada, right? Attracting investment, but nobody wants to be here. Nobody wants to be here. Nobody wants to put their money here. Right? Like if you're a billionaire and you have, I don't know, let's say $1 billion to invest in projects, right? You're not coming to Canada. We have a reputation. Look, we attracted a lot of investment with Stephen Harper. We actually did kind of well with Stephen Harper despite our wonky system. And I have some beefs with Stephen Harper in regards to the way that he further attached our ship to China. But what happened, I talked about this with Bruce Party on the last episode, but I'll reiterate here because it's an important point. I've had the luxury of speaking to a few really high top floor oil and gas executives out here in Alberta, and they've told me the exact same thing independently, that the problem in Canada is that you attract private investment, you pool a ton of money together to get these projects going, and then that project goes underway, and during that process the government sticks its straws into the project, a lot of them, environmental fees, processing fees, uh, additional taxes, municipal fees, pipeline fees, Aboriginal and Indigenous land treaty, and then their fees that come along with that. So what ends up happening is you get about halfway through the project and the money's gone, and it's all gone to government. And so what they have to do is they have to go back to their investors who were expecting that their initial investment was enough to get the project done, and explain to them that most of the money was siphoned away and chewed up by the Canadian government, by the bureaucracy. And so what ends up happening over time is all those people get burned, and they get burned enough that they never come back. So now, say, for example, I think it's this Trans Mountain pipeline. That's the pipeline the Liberals are talking about getting going again, right, Peyman?
Probably, but it's not my area of expertise.
Okay. So they're talking about getting that pipeline going. Well, the private investment isn't arriving. So what they're doing is they're taking our money to build that pipeline. We are building it, our tax dollars, because the private investment doesn't want to be here. It's not coming here. Not only that, but the private equity that exists in Canada, the capital is on a mass exodus out. So there's not only is there no new money arriving, but the old money's leaving. And that's where we now find ourselves. And I wrote this essay, I want to say like 2 years ago now, called The Great White Money Pit. Canada is the new Venezuela. And we are even more further now resembling Venezuela under Chavez. The same exact thing happened. So Venezuela has arguably the deepest oil reserves in the world. If you Google it on any given day, they'll be first or second or third. But it is speculated that Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia and even Canada. So Venezuela, by all accounts, should be the wealthiest country on earth, and should have been the wealthiest country on earth for a long time. But under Hugo Chavez and his communist government, the embezzlement, the corruption, just the pure stupidity of them, and their inability to understand just basic tenets of markets, just the basic fundamental ideas of a market. They squandered it all to a point where hyperinflation hit Venezuela, and their bolivar, their currency, was worth absolutely nothing. To this day, if you go to Venezuela, you can only trade with USD because the bolivar is so unstable. They never know what it's going to be worth from day to day. That's where we are so close to that, and I feel like a lot of Canadians can sense that that's the track we're on, that's where we're going, but nobody really knows what to do. And the hope is that by simply voting in a conservative government, this is going to fix the problem. But number one, I don't believe that Canada will vote in Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives in this election that we have coming up, who knows when. But number two, if we did, I don't think the Conservatives are capable of fixing this problem, because this is a problem that has existed for many, many, many decades. And it's really unclear to anybody who's observing or analyzing, as you do, Peyman, how to turn this thing around. When I talked to Bruce Party, I asked him the same question. He said, subjectively, in his point of view, Canada cannot be fixed. The only alternative is for Alberta to leave. That's the only way to save it.
Bruce Party,
which is scary to hear from a guy like him, right?
Yeah, he's usually positive. I've had an epiphany with the Conservative Party and the People's Party. The reason that the People's Party will never win is because they don't run to win. They just run to run. So they're not in it to win it. They're not. That's my polite
true.
way. It's my polite way of saying that headquarters is incompetent. If they wanted to win, there's a way. They
just run for social media points is what I take away from it all the time.
Even that, even if they had malice, I would encourage that over the fact that they're incompetent. It's like getting no offense to bus drivers, but getting an alcoholic bus driver, school bus driver, to run a national campaign. He just doesn't know what he's doing. So that's the problem with the People's Party. The Conservative Party, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but their flaw is that they're running to form government. And if you're running to form government, you pander to the center. If you're pandering to the center, you can't say the things that are necessary to heal the country, all wars are banker wars, or what we're talking about right here, right? Like the banking system is a problem. Is there an echo? Do you hear it on your end?
No, I don't hear an echo.
Good.
Do you hear an echo?
As long as this is my end, it's fine. So that's a problem I see with the Conservative Party. Now, going back to what you said about the pipeline, everybody's got. You said they have their straws in that. That's a problem for you and me, especially now that we're the taxpayer and we're financing it. It's a problem for the private sector that wants to build that pipeline. It is a boondoggle for the government because A, they're getting a bunch of money. That means their revenues are growing. The profit model is working, and B, nobody else outside of that let's just call it network or organizational can navigate that. Like you justify the necessity of the state to be able to manage all these different stakeholders, essentially, is the phrase that they use. So you got the First Nations, you got the trans, you got the climate change. I don't know. You got the Muslim Council, whatever, and they make it's like molasses. It's impossible to navigate that. It's not just Canada; it's in Europe as well. NATO is heavily involved in making, forcing this within the European countries, and I think America is the one that's the most is the winner out of all of this because they're kind of avoiding it.
Yeah, sorry, I was paying people in the chat were saying that they're hearing the echo too. Sorry guys, it's my mic. I have a brand new microphone. I have no fucking time. I haven't even taken it out of the box yet, but this microphone picks up my speakers even when I have it on echo cancellation. So I apologize guys. That will be fixed for the next live stream. Anyways, so
suggestion.
How do we get out of this?
If you want to fix this, you just mute your mic while I'm talking, and I'll mute while you're talking.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So Peyman, how do we get out of this, man? How do we fix this?
The The only thing I can think of right now, you need a movement. It can be a political party or it can be like an X account of people who will